Hello everyone, I am Shubhra Bhattacharya from Medical College Kolkata, and today is the topic of blood or the drugs used in hematology, and this is the last module of the paper 1. After that I will provide you a general pharmacological PDF which covers the whole general pharmacological chapters or the topics which came into the last 10 years. And I already sent the forms. Please send your doubts. I will make another video or maybe live session on the doubts which you have sent. Please join my WhatsApp group and download the PDF. Okay. So in this module, I want to discuss the most important topics in this chapter and some topics from the cardiovascular chapter also, and also the question answer discussion of previous 10 years. So start with first question. Folic acid and iron in pregnancy. This is the topic. If the question is come in your exam, so what you have to write, please follow the video. Coming to the folic acid. Okay. Why folic acid is needed? Because first of all things, folic acid is a precursor of an essential methyl group donor. Okay. And the methyl group is used for the synthesis of amino acid, synthesis of DNA, synthesis of urine, and those are essential for red blood cell formation. Okay. And next, folic acid prevent the congenital neural tube defects or open neural tube defects like spina bifida, like anencephaly. Okay. And you can notice, please write down the flowchart like N5M FH4 gives FH4, the methyl group is attached to that and becomes N510 MFH4, which gives the methyl group to the DUMP to transform this DTMP, which helps to form DNA. Okay, you can write this, but you can ignore that. Okay, so that's why folic acid is needed in case of pregnancy. Now coming to the iron. Iron, which is given into the second or third trimester, it's required for the biosynthesis of heme, like which helps to formation of hemoglobin, helps to formation of heme containing proteins and methyl hemoglobin, and for that the fetal hemoglobin is formed through the iron. Okay, and if the folic acid in iron is deficient, then there may be cause open neural tube defects and iron deficiency anemia. So which are the diagnosing points to diagnose that if there is a folic acid deficiency or if there is a iron deficiency? Okay, let's concentrate about that. Now there is the diagnosing points. Total RBC count, hemoglobin amount, hemoglobin electrophoresis. Total RBC count and hemoglobin gives us the ammonia status, and the hemoglobin electrophoresis rules out the thalassemia differential diagnosis. Okay, so type of anemia, and the anemia is confirmed by hemoglobin value and the total RBC count, and the hemoglobin electrophoresis gives us the defines the thalassemia effect. Okay, now coming to the one pregnant mother, we like early pregnancy. Okay, we have late pregnancy and we have mid-term pregnancy. I am going to discuss in which stage of pregnancy, in which amount of iron and which amount of folic acid we have to give them. So in the early pregnancy, we have to give folic acid at 0.5 mg dose. Okay, irrespective of hemoglobin concentration. So we have to give all mother the folic acid 0.5 mg. Okay, we cannot give ferrous sulfate. Why? Because it is causes nausea and vomiting. Okay, that's fine. But in the early pregnancy, if mother have hemoglobin level less than 10%, so we have to give elemental iron or parental iron, because these two iron don't cause nausea and vomiting. Now coming to the severe anemia. If there is severe anemia in the early stage of pregnancy, then we have to give blood transfusion. Okay. Coming to the midterm pregnancy. In the midterm pregnancy, irrespective of anemia is present or not present, we have to give iron and folic acid. Iron at 600 mg and folic acid is 0.5 mg. But the iron is elemental iron. If there is anemia, then we have to give parenteral iron. Now coming to the late pregnancy, I have to mention that the iron and folic acid in case of late pregnancy anemia, there is no effect. Why? Because if there is already anemia and we give iron and folic acid, the new hemoglobin formation or hemoglobin concentration is increased, take time for 3 months, and so there is no help in case of iron and folic acid medicine. So we have to give blood transfusion. Okay. So if the question is come, the amount the folic acid in the pregnancy, or why folic acid is used, why iron is used, or iron in pregnancy is at short note, you have to write up to this. Okay. The second question says that low molecular weight heparin is better than conventional heparin. Unfragmented heparin differences. I will discuss 3 differences in case of pharmacodynamic and 3 differences in case of pharmacokinetic. Okay, let's first discuss the pharmacodynamic effects. First of all, low molecular weight heparin is selectively factor 10A, it's inhibit, but least effect on the factor 2A. Okay. Next, how it's act? It's act by inducing and configuration changing in case of antithrombin 3 and thrombin. Okay. Now coming to the third effect, it's a smaller side effect or small side effect on the conjugation pathway. If there is a small side effect on the conjugation pathway, then there is a little change in the antiplatelet mechanism or action. So there is a rare chance of thrombocytopenia and spontaneous bleeding. Okay. So in these 3 cases, pharmacodynamically is more accurate this lower molecular weight heparin. Now coming to the pharmacokinetic effect. In case of pharmacokinetic effect, there is a subcutaneous bioavailability of the low molecular heparin is 90% higher compared to the unfragmented heparin. Now coming to the second, there is a long and more consistent because the half-life is big in case of low molecular weight heparin. Now coming to the third point, as there is the APTT and CT, it's not prolonged, so we have not to done the laboratory diagnosis or laboratory monitoring of the patient. Okay. So because of these 6 reasons, we have preferred low molecular weight heparin rather than unfragmented heparin. Okay. Now coming to the next question. Desferrioxamine is used in case of iron poisoning. Okay. So there is a big table. I will discuss from here and complete here. Okay, please listen carefully because this is the most important thing you have to know. Okay, first thing, if iron is overloaded, okay, then there is a iron poisoning. So I will discuss if iron is overloaded, then where the iron gets stored, and if there is iron overload or iron poisoning, then what is the symptoms. Then I will discuss why desferrioxamine is used and how the mechanism of action, what is the contraindication, and we have some precaution. Okay, to start with iron overload. Iron overloaded, the iron get loaded in spleen, in the liver, in the bone marrow, in the skin. Okay, and if the iron loaded is maximum and cause iron poisoning, then there will be necrotizing gastroenteritis first. Second, if there is a necrotizing gastroenteritis, then there will be abdominal pain. Okay, so abdominal pain. If there is abdominal pain, then we have vomiting. So vomiting. If there is a necrotizing gastroenteritis, then we have a bloody diarrhea. So there is a bloody diarrhea. Okay, all are linked together. So there is the iron overload problem. Coming to the desferrioxamine, if you can draw the desferrioxamine, you can draw because it is a simple formula. It's look like big, but it's a simple formula. I will discuss the formula how to write in a short term after the discussion this topic. Okay. So the black portion is the desferrioxamine. and desferrioxamine bind to the Fe3 plus by some covalent bond and some coordinate bond, and that is called chelating reaction. The desferrioxamine bound with iron or chelating compound form. The compound name is ferroxamine, and ferroxamine is not toxic. It can be excreted through the urine, and this is a orange red color urine. Coming to the, if 1 gram of the desferrioxamine is used, then 85 gram of iron can be chelated or chelated. And which iron it take place? It take only the loosely bound iron from the hemosiderin, from the ferritin, but it not take the tightly bound iron like hemoglobin, like from the cytochrome. From there the iron is not taken, only the excess iron like hemosiderin, ferritin, they take the iron and from the non-toxic form and excrete to the urine. And the precaution, firstly we have to eye test and ear test before starting the medicine. And one is the contraindication, we cannot use the desferrioxamine when there is an antipsychotic treatment was done or going on. Coming to the desferrioxamine formula, we have to write 6 CH2 molecule, 6 CH2, 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 CH2. Okay. Then 5-2 formula. What is the 5-2 formula? Start with 5, then 2, then 5, then 2, then 5, and lastly 2. Okay. Next, coming to the 1 हो गया, 2 हो गया, plus 3, NC. Draw N and draw C. Draw N, draw C. Draw N, draw C. So they are linked, they are linked, they are linked. Okay, they are linked. We have to complete the molecule. It is very easy. 1 oxygen, 2 oxygen. 1 oxygen, 2 bond. Sorry, 1 oxygen, 1 oxygen. Okay. And there are separate 3 molecules. We have to add them. So add by CONH bond. Add here NH2, and there is your desferrioxamine molecular formula. Okay. Now coming to the next question, why alkylase is most useful? Altiplase. Start. Now coming to the next question, why altiplase is most useful than streptokinase? Okay. So first of all, going to this question, we have to know how plasminogen get activated to form plasmine, and the plasmine act on the fibrin and dissolve or break the fibrin. So the fact is, plasminogen gets converted to the plasmine with the use of tissue plasminogen activator, and then the plasmine can break the fibrinogen. So we have to use this mechanism, and we have 2 drugs. Okay. First of all, we use the streptokinase. There is a streptokinase mechanism. There are 2 types of plasminogen. One is bound plasminogen, bound to the fibrin, and there is a circulatory plasminogen. Okay. So mainly streptokinase is inactive. When the inactive streptokinase bind with the circulatory plasminogen, then a active complex is formed. Okay. Suppose this is the streptokinase, this is the circulating plasminogen bind with that, and this is the main active complex which activates another plasminogens. Okay. So there is the first point. So how this active complex give another plasminogen, convert another plasminogen to plasmin. So this plasminogen or active complex proteolyze the other plasminogens. Okay. Now coming to the streptokinase. Streptokinase bound with or act on circulatory as well as bound. So if they act on the circulatory plasminogen which break the circulatory fibrin, then there will be a chance of profuse bleeding. Okay. So that is the second point. Now coming to the third point. In case of group C beta hemolytic streptococcus, we derive the streptokinase. So this streptokinase drug have some antigenicity, have some allergic reaction or allergicity. For the antigenicity, there may be cause hypersensitive reaction, or for this antigenicity, there may be cause some anaphylactic shock. So there is the third point. Now coming to the fourth point. If we use repeated dose of this streptokinase, then there may be neutralization by the antibiotic, or the neutralization by the antibodies. Okay. Now coming to the fifth point, if I have pre-infection of the streptococcus, then I have already the antibiotic against the antigen. So then the loading dose of the streptokinase should be higher than the normal dose. Okay, so there are the 5 problems in using of streptokinase. Now coming to the ALPase. In the ALPase, this is a recombinant tissue peptinogen, plasminogen activator. Why recombinant? Because it is derived from the human tissue culture. It has specific effect on the gel phase plasminogen. Gel phase plasminogen means which are the bound with the fibrin, they are the gel phase plasminogen, and they have small effect on the circulatory, and this enzyme is rapidly cleared by the liver. So there is a small plasma half-life like 4 to 8 minutes. So we have to use heparin for the co-administration. So there is the 6th cause because which the streptokinase is not nowadays is not used. Okay. Now coming to the next question, why iron therapy is contraindicated in case of thalassemia? Coming to the thalassemia is a genetic disorder in which there is a disformation or the disease in the formation of the hemoglobin chain, and for the not properly formed hemoglobin chain, the RBC get hemolysis, and if the RBC get destroyed, then the iron come in our circulation, and the iron go to the RE system or reticular endothelial systems and get there stored. Okay, and now we add iron therapy. Then iron go to the RE system, and then it's cause iron overload, and the iron overload may cause the iron toxicity. Iron get accumulate in case of spleen, liver, skin, bone marrow, and cause some necrotizing gastroenteritis, which may cause vomiting, which may cause bloody diarrhea, and in abdominal pain. Okay, so we cannot use iron therapy in case of thalassemia. The next question is why vitamin K is used in case of warfarin overload. Okay, so in case of warfarin overload, we use vitamin K. By the vitamin K, factor 2, factor 7, factor 9 and factor 10 get activated, and warfarin inhibit the vitamin K, and therefore the activation is not done and the coagulation pathway is stopped. So in the warfarin overload, we have to increase the amount of vitamin K. For that the pathway is not broken and the coagulation pathway is not stopped. Okay, so there will be no bleeding, and there is a index called International Sensitization Index, where we test the test by PT control, and if the ISI index is less than 5, then there is no requirement of any vitamin K. If the ISI index is between 5 to 20, then we have to use vitamin K, and if it is more than 20, then we use 50% plasma. Okay, FFP. So please, I want to tell you that please check the data. Is more than 20, so we use FFP, and I think this is the right. If you think or you find this is the wrong, please send me the correct value and mention in the comment box. Okay. Now I want to discuss how aspirin is act, the mechanism of action of the aspirin. Before that, I want to tell about the in injured blood vessels, how platelet come and bind to some receptors, and what is the changes formed into the platelet. Okay, so let's talk about there is a epithelium breakage. Okay, and if the epithelium is broken, so there are some factors which exposed in the injured epithelium, and this factor is called bond Wilbur factors. And with the BWA factors, there are some receptors present on the surface of the platelets get attached, and this is called glycoprotein 1b. Okay. When the glycoprotein 1b attached to the von Willebrand factors, then the phospholipid of the cell membrane of the platelet gets converted into the arachidonic acid with the help of phospholipase A2, and the arachidonic acid with the help of COX enzyme, they form the prostaglandin G2 and H2, which is a very unstable molecule which gets transformed into the thromboxane A2. And the thromboxane A2 causes vasoconstriction, and it causes more other platelet aggregation, and it causes the overexpress of the glycoprotein 2b3a receptor, and this is tricky, and which these receptor again the platelet get attached. Okay, and now our aspirin come here and inhibit the COX. So what is the mechanism of action of the aspirin? First of all, it's not formation of the vasoconstriction, it's protect from the platelet aggregation, and it's also decrease the glycoprotein 2b3a receptor on the surface. Okay, so this is a irreversible COX enzyme inhibitor. What is the dose? We have to use 75 to 325 milligram of the aspirin OD for the prophylaxis of the stroke or the MI, and the one side effect is the bleeding disorder, bleeding in case of aspirin. Now I am discussing the clopidogrel is used as a antiplatelet drug. Coming to some mechanism of platelet, like this is the epithelium, and there is our injured epithelium of the blood vessels. Okay, and there are some von Willebrand factor, we know that, and C4 or fast platelet bind with the glycoprotein 1b receptor. And after that, we know that there are three substrates like thromboxane A2, ADP, and serotonin released from the platelet, which binds with another receptor present over the surface of another platelet, and by attaching, the aggregation of the platelet is started. Okay. Now we take clopidogrel, but it is an inactive form. Our liver, we have an enzyme CYP2C19. By this enzyme, the clopidogrel becomes activated, and after they activated, they block the receptor of ADP, and the receptor is P2Y12 receptor, and this is an irreversible inhibitor of the receptor. Okay, and we use clopidogrel for preventing shock, for unstable angina, and for secondary prophylaxis of myocardial infarction. Okay. Now, the omeprazole inhibit the CYP2C19 enzyme of the liver. That's why clopidogrel cannot activate it, and the work is not done. And there are two drugs like cangrelor and ticagrelor. They are reversible inhibitor of the P2Y12 receptor. Okay, so there is the whole concept of the P2Y12 receptor, ADP, and clopidogrel. Okay, now coming to the next question, and my next question is how warfarin act. Okay, I want to discuss the warfarin because I want to say something which is most interesting, and the heparin is attached in your PDF. Please go through that. So this is the last question of the hematology video. The question is warfarin. Now coming to the action of the warfarin. Before the starting of the action of the warfarin, I want to say the precursor prothrombin is transformed to the biologically active prothrombin by a carboxylation. The carboxylation is called gamma carboxylation, and the enzyme is used here is the carboxylase enzyme. Okay, and when the precursor prothrombin transform into the biologically activated prothrombin with the help of carboxylase enzyme, also vitamin K, reduce vitamin K formed with the enzyme epoxide vitamin K. For this process, the epoxide vitamin K should be transformed into reduced vitamin K, and for that there is another enzyme called vitamin K epoxide reductase. So by this enzyme, epoxide vitamin K transform into the reduced vitamin K, and the reduced vitamin K again take part into the gamma carboxylation, and our warfarin inhibit the vitamin K epoxide reductase enzyme. Therefore the whole mechanism get broken and the gamma carboxylation is not done. Okay, now I want to say gamma carboxylation is not done in case of factor number 2, factor 7, factor 9, factor 10. Okay, now I want to tell you just what is the process of gamma carboxylation. It is the platelet, and there is the 2 coagulation factor, there is CO minus and there is CO minus, so they cannot bind each other because both are negative, so they repel each other, and they are negative, and the surface of the platelet is also negative, so there is calcium to bind this, and with the use of vitamin K, gamma carboxylase enzyme and the calcium, the 2 coagulation factor come each other and they activate. So this activation is not done if the warfarin is used. Okay. By this I will cover the pharmacology paper 1 question answer discussion of previous 10 years. The general pharmacology is given as a PDF format in your WhatsApp group. Thank you for watching this video, and the other topics will be uploaded little bit later. Thank you.